Hello everybody, welcome to the homework help video for 324. We'll be going over problems 102 through 109. So in this first problem, it says that Astasia wants to learn more about excluded values. Good question. It says, explain to Astasia why x cannot be 4 in the expression. And so they've got x plus 2 over x minus 4. And so what you should notice that is if x is equal to 4, then our denominator is going to be 0. And we know that we cannot divide by 0 because it's going to put a 0 in our denominator, right? So if you were to plug it into your calculator, if you plugged in 4 for x, you would be doing 6 divided by 0, which will give you a divide by 0 error. In B, it says find the excluded values of x if each expression in each of the expressions from 399. So it has you going back to problem 399, and the values that are going to make it in part A, I'm just going to write them over here. It says that in A, we cannot have x equal to negative 1/3. In B, x can't equal 5. And then, oh, sorry, my bad. X can't equal negative 1/3 or 5 for part A. And for B, x cannot equal positive 3 or negative 3. So if you go back and look at problems from 99, you'll see that those are our excluded values. Excuse me, my voice is going. It says to create an expression that has excluded values of x equal to 6 and 1/3, and be prepared to share your expressions. Don't worry so much about that. But one thing we can come up with is that they just want you to see that if we're using that, we know that what's going to make it so is that if we've got an x minus 6, if we plug in negative 6, we'll get a negative 12, so that's not going to work. In fact, instead we want to make it x plus 6. So if we plug in a negative 6, we'll get 0. On the bottom, we'll have 3x minus 1. And then our numerator can literally be anything in the world. You can even put a fish, right? Doesn't matter. X, Y, 1, 2, 1,000. You can pick anything in the numerator. Moving on to 103A and B. It says use the methods developed in class to add or subtract the following rational expressions. And so if we're interested in adding them, I'm going to change the zoom a little bit because it is pretty small. Alright, woo, too big. So looking at A and B, we want to change it so that we can add and subtract. Really what that means is we're looking to create a common denominator between the two. First, what we're going to want to do is we're looking at x squared minus 2x minus 8. We want to factor that out to see really what we're working with. So we've got 4x over, and then something that multiplies to negative 8 but adds to negative 2 would be x minus 4 and x plus 2. And then we want to add it to 4 over x minus 4. And so we can see for our second one, we're going to need to include x plus 2. When we do that, it'll simplify to 4x plus 8. I'm going to change the top, so we've got 4x plus 8. And now we're free to go ahead and just add straight across 4x and 4x. Will give us 8x plus 8. And then our denominator stays the same. Feel free to leave it in this form. Alright. Then we'll move on to B. I'm going to leave the answer up for you guys in red. So for this one, again, we're going to want to take and we're going to want to factor out our denominator. And it also looks in part B that 16x minus 12, there's something we can pull out. There's something they have in common, which is going to be that 6. So let's go ahead and take care of that. 6 times, we know that, oops, just kidding. You cannot pull out 6 out of 16. My bad. We can pull out a 4 though. We'll be left with 4x minus 3 over, and then below we're going to want to do some work with our x box. So if we create our x, we should get negative 24x squared, and then in the middle will be our 5x. And so something that's going to multiply to negative 24 but add to 5x is going to be, let's see, we can do positive 8x and negative 3 x, and so we'll put that into our box where we've got 4x squared and negative 6, and then we'll throw in our negative 3x and our positive 8x. So over here, we're going to get a negative 3. Below, we can pull out, looks like a 4x. Down below, we can just pull out an x and a positive 2. So down below, in red, I'm going to write 4x minus 3 times x plus 2, which you can notice that we can do a simplifying step in between. Our 4x minus 3 is going to go away, and so really what we're left with is 4 over 2x, or sorry, x plus 2, minus 3 over x plus 2, which will just leave us with 1 over x plus 2 as our answer. This is one of the problems we did as a warm-up one in class. All right, moving on. In 104, it asks us to solve the equations and inequalities below. Check your solution if possible. Hopefully these are ones you guys have seen before. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to come ask me, but I'm thinking that this is stuff you should know how to do. I will, however, show you how to do 105. 105, it just has us simplifying each rational expression as much as possible. So all we want to do is simplify, which we should be pros at. So really what we're looking for is we want things to be all factored out for us. So in A, everything has been factored for us. So all we want to do is pull out anything that we've got something in the numerator and the denominator, or something in the top and in the bottom. We can see that we can cross out our x minus 1 because they're going to make a 1 for us. So those are going to go away. Then we're left with x minus 4. We've got 3 of those over x minus 4 squared, which means we have 2 of those. So we'll take, and we can cancel out anything where we see 1 in the top and 1 in the bottom, and we're left with x minus 4. So for part A, you should get an answer of x minus 4. In B, we can see that that bottom and top need to be factored out, so we're going to be doing a lot of factoring. In B, let's do the top first. So we'll do our x box method. 7 times 3 is 21 m squared, all over negative 22m. So it looks like we're going to want negative 21m and negative m. Plugging that into our box, we have 7m squared, positive 3, and then we'll have our negative 21m and a negative m. So in order to multiply to get a negative and a negative over here, means this, something here is going to have to be negative, something here has to be negative. Up top we can pull out a 3, down below just looks like an m. Then we can pull out a 7m and a 1. So what we'll be left with for our factors is I'm going to write it down below so I have it. We'll have 7m minus 1 times the quantity m minus 3. We'll do the same thing to factor out the bottom using our xbox method. So now we'll do the bottom in blue. So we'll do our x, negative 18 m squared over, in the bottom, negative m. So it looks like we're looking for, let's see, 3 and 4 will give us 12, so we want 6 and 2. There's also 9 and 2. So we want a negative 9m and a positive 2m. Putting that into our box, I'll have 3m squared and negative 6. And then we plug in our negative 9m and a 2m. So over here we can pull out a negative 3. Here we can pull out m. Then here we've got a 3m and a, looks like just 2. So what that tells me is that all belongs again in our denominator. So we've got m minus 3 times 3m plus 2. And then I'm going to take this, remember this was our numerator. So 7m minus 1 over 3m minus 3. We can see that our m minus 3s are going to cancel out. So our final answer should be 7m minus 1 all over 3m plus 2 is the final answer. All right. Those are a little bit work intensive, but C will be a nice easy one, very similar to part A. And in D, you'll see that we still do need to factor a few things out. What they want you to see there, let's do D really quick, is that we can factor out our top. We'll still have our x plus 2, and then we'll have x minus 3 times x minus 3. And down below, we've got an x minus 3, and then a difference of 2 squares, because we have x plus 2 and x minus 2. Really quick, you can see that our x minus 3s will cancel, and our x plus 2, and we'll be left with x minus 3 divided by x minus 2. That should be a minus sign, my bad. As our answer. All right. Moving on. In 106, it says that Lexington High School has an annual growth rate of 4.7%. 3 years ago, there were 1,500 students at the school. How many students are there now? Were there 5 years ago? So with this one, what they're really asking us to do is set up an exponential growth. So they tell us it's a growth rate, so we expect those numbers to be increasing. So a year from now, there should be more students than there were to start out with. Let's scroll down. So for our equation, it says 3 years ago, we had a starting value of 1,500, and we're growing at a rate of 1.047 to however many it was. So 3 years later, how many students were there? In B, they say how many students were there 5 years ago. You have to remember that we were talking about something that happened 3 years ago. And so our rate we're looking at, nothing really changes except our exponent should be to the negative 2. And then see how many students will there be n years from now. So a little bit complicated step is that from now, we're talking about from now, but we also know that to get today, we had to have it to the third. So the power we're looking to raise it to n years from now, and then plus the additional 3 to bring it up to speed. In 107, it says multiply or divide the expressions below. Leave your answers as simplified as possible. So, more multiplying and dividing, and of course, simplifying. This is at the heart of what we have been learning about. So let's pick one of them to do. Let's do a multiplication problem. Let's do C. In C, we're going to want to factor everything out and multiply across. Obviously, simplifying is going to be key. Looking at that one, I'm thinking that there's a lot of factoring that needs to be done. So a quick one and an easy one to do, one that's already factored out for you, would be one like in A. But let's do division. So I'm going to flip-flop as many times as humanly possible on you before deciding on B. So in B, we've got division, and so we know that our first terms are going to stay exactly the same. That's plus 11 over 2m plus 5, m minus 3. And then division just means that we're going to multiply by its reciprocal, which will be 4m minus 3, m plus 11. Oops. Reciprocal means this should go on the bottom. We got our 4m minus 3, m plus 11, and then 4m minus 3, 2m plus 5. When we multiply, we know that it's really just combining it, and everything's being multiplied, and then we're looking to take out anything that's in common. So that'll go away. We got it m plus 11, m plus 11, 2m plus 5, 2m plus 5, m minus 3, m minus 3. Everything cancels out, and so really when we're canceling, we're just making ones. And so for part B, our answer should be the number 1. Hooray! All right. And then I'm going to skip 108, so if you're still having questions about that one, please feel free to come and see me. But let's look at 109. In 109, they give us the function, an f of x function, and a g of x. So be sure that you notice that there's two different ones. They just, in part A, part B, and G, they just want you to plug in whatever they tell you to plug in. And really the heart of what we're doing, one that might still be tripping you up, is where they say that f of x is equal to 0. What they're really saying is y is equal to 0, so that entire equation is equal to 0. We know that f of x is equal to 3x minus 9. So if f of x is equal to 0, what that really means is that our equation is then equal to 0, and we want to solve. So we're going to add 9 to both sides. 9 is equal to 3x, so that we know x is equal to 3. All right. Hope that helps. Please make sure you're practicing, trying some of those harder simplification questions.